Namaste everybody, I'm Shriparna Sarkar and today I'm going to talk about the coexistence of gender and nutrition. We have always been told that what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, and honestly I'm really afraid if it is so. So today I propose to show that the nutritional needs of men and women are different, and to understand this properly we need to analyze in detail the conditions of accessibility, availability, affordability as well as absorption. Well, now I will not be able to get into the entire details here due to lack of time. Honestly, however, we know that structural factors create a lot of variation in these domains. For example, thus due to the PDS system, the public distribution system in India, food may be available to all irrespective of gender. Many women cannot access it due to constraints of mobility or simply because they cannot afford it. But we all know that chronic undernutrition in early childhood leads to recurrent diarrhea, which in turn again impacts to absorption. Now the question is, are boys and girls impacted differently? Like, let's take one example in this instance, that the PDS shop is 2 kilometers away in a hilly area. Now the woman of the house, who may be pregnant for example, is unable to go out to fetch the rations, and her husband is also away as a migrant worker in some city. So these are such real life cases, and it amounts mostly in hilly and forest areas of the country inhabited by Adivasis. So we often tend to believe that girls are more malnourished than boys. Well, is that really so? If we consider the Global Nutrition Report 2020, it shows that in India, in the age group of 0 to 5 years, boys are more malnourished than girls. So this has been substantiated by the National Institute of Nutrition, and data shows that even in the adolescent, boys are more malnourished than girls. It is much later that men are better nourished than women as adults, but how do we actually explain all of this? So that is where the question arises. So first of all, we do not have adequate data at the micro as well as the micro level to understand this further. So in fact, while the Global Nutrition Report shows bizarring inadequacies honestly in the data, since it is simply not available at all. Now the latest we have is the National Family Health Survey 4 data, which was published I think in the year 2015. But again, it was collected in the years of 2013 and 14. So to better understand issues of food and nutrition security, of course these are like two different, food security and nutrition security, but still we have to collect gender disaggregated data according to age, like one, sex, then stage in the life cycle, and the birth order, especially in a particular setting, and time state context. So we also need data on critical factors like availability and affordability at like the individual level as well as the household level. Unfortunately, such holistic data is not available in micro settings, barring a few studies here and there. But in the case of women especially as well as men, you also have to collect the data according to seasons, keeping in mind especially the working patterns. So like working patterns of men and women, especially in the rural setup. So this points to the need for robust data collection at both the macro and micro levels. But then here comes the existence of the importance of a girl in the society, where her ability to reproduce is the only concern for her nutrition. Like for the demographic factor on the other hand is variable. It can be caste, class, region, like even urban and rural, like everything. Regions, for example, Eastern India versus South India versus like Western India, or like across the country. However, age as well as the stages in the life cycle is to be considered, and we often tend to assume a lot of things. So these are typically the areas where we are not aware of honestly. And when we talk about region, we should not forget about the accessibility part. Accessibility to not only nutrition but also natural resources. Hence we need to realize that our exact physical location means a lot, like a really lot. And mostly a mother's age at marriage and mother's education is another concern. Our data, the Global Nutrition Report says that 33% of women are married before the age of 18, and a large proportion of them are pregnant before the age of 18 itself. So also when we substantiate the same and refer to the report, we see that mothers who are educated at least till the 10th standard, the nutrition of their children are better. Then comes another very important indicator which caters to malnutrition is birth order. So the first born, irrespective of the sex, is quite well nourished, and this is something we find in general, unless the parents are very poor who cannot cater to basic food intake. Like, this is generally we find that the firstborn is always more or less well nourished. Now suppose the firstborn is a girl, invariably the secondborn, irrespective of gender, will be less nourished, right, than the first. Now this continues until the woman gives birth to a boy, and in the entire process the mother's nutrition is quite poor, especially if she has given birth to 2 or 3 girls from the firstborn order, like from the first birth order. Eventually the society thinks that the woman is only capable of producing girls, and hence her nutrition is no longer considered important. Suppose the same woman gives birth to a boy after her 6th child. Now this boy is severely malnourished, right? But just a boy, like, we see the preference of a boy child is prevalent even today. So from the time the boy is born, he is stuffed unnecessarily, which may or may not have nutrition at all, stuffed food. So these are typically some anthropological practices we actually see which happens in today's time. And a woman's work is always invisible. No matter of how much work she does, nobody considers her work to be something important or something where she might need a nutritious diet. Also, we take the dietary intake into consideration, including the minimum dietary requirements or the recommended daily dose. It does not really cater to the nutrition at all. So taking another example, I would say that generally speaking, all women are anemic, even I am anemic. So cutting across caste, class and regions, across India, rather even Asia honestly. However, in most of the tribal regions of this country, scheduled caste and tribes suffer from sickle cell anemia, and it coexists with normal anemia. And I think it is very important to distinguish or identify victims of sickle cell anemia, because the treatment for anemia often worsens the condition. Like, despite existence of technology to identify sickle cell disease, like except for the state of Kerala of course, where there is no concerted effort by the state to identify SCD. But if we, by contrast, we see that in the US, if a child is born, it is mandatory to screen her or him for SCD. And honestly, I cannot really understand why this cannot be done here in India, where 98% births are institutionally delivered in India. So then we often do not find enough data, right? And have we honestly ever tried to find answers? That's a major question which I often have. Why aren't we investing on collecting gender disaggregated data? As Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who is WHO's research director, said that our institutions are very patriarchal. Starting at the fourth, she stated this at the 4th Women Leaders in Global Health Conference 2020, and she said that it is more difficult for women researchers to get their grants approved. Significantly, a smaller portion of research grants go to women, and women also have difficulties in getting their results published. And if you are from developing countries in journals, because of especially it's because of the perceived biases. And she even went on to speak of how the pandemic of COVID-19 has brought to the fore several gaps in equal representation of women in decision making, and both national and global bodies constituted to develop a response to health crises in general and COVID-19 in general. So she referred to a study published in the British Medical Journal in October 1, and the author was Kim Robin van Daegelen. And the study actually analyzed COVID-19 task forces and expert committees constituted by 87 countries, and found that 85.2% of 115 identified COVID-19 decision making and expert task forces had mostly men as members, while a mere 3.5% of these bodies had gender parity. India too performs poorly. It was 2 women and 14 men in its COVID-19 task force, and that is a mere 14.3% of the members are women. So the study argues for a greater representation from the entire gender spectrum, and not just male-female binaries, as well as across ethnic, racial, cultural, geographical and even disability groups. So it also discusses the paradox presented by COVID-19, that while women bear the worst brunt of the socio-economic consequences of the pandemic, they are also missing from the policy bodies. So UN Women's Rapid Assessment Surveys in Asia Pacific to study the gender impact of COVID-19 shows that women in Bangladesh and Pakistan are less likely to receive information about COVID-19 than the men because of the differences in cell phone ownership or even internet access, or for that instance educational attainment at all. So women in Bangladesh had to wait longer to access health services, and it is also more difficult to get medical supplies, honestly, like even hygiene products and food. In Nepal, the stats says that it's 65% women and 59% men. Bangladesh says 83% women and 14% men. And even Philippines has 51% women and 34% men. And a far greater number of women in formal sectors lost their jobs as compared to men. Thus, we do not know what will be the gendered impact on COVID on nutritional outcomes in the households, but we are not even doing anything about it. And due to the market penetrations, several things have happened, like monocropping, sharp reduction in dietary diversity, and availability of junk foods or fast foods in rural areas. So among the malnourished, the majority are SC and ST. And what is the nutritional approach in our country? Policy wise, we need to look into the way how government of India tries to tackle malnutrition, right? But the government has various schemes including subsidized cereals as well, and even Anganwadi midday meals. However, honestly, the lockdown due to COVID-19 has impacted all of them. So there are supply side problems and leakages in all the schemes which needs to be understood and plugged in. Well, look, I'm aware of the strong institutional failures in ameliorating nutritional security issues, especially for women. So what do we do about it, honestly? Like provide them direct cash transfers? But then again, in my opinion, that is not the solution for several reasons. The cash, even if it is transferred through the direct bank accounts, the woman will never have access to it, like, because it is shown in many studies that the money is controlled by the men and goes for frivolous consumptions like TV sets and smartphones. Secondly, the state cannot applicate its responsibilities for the health and nutritional care as well as the nutritional needs, especially for the poor. So cash transfers will also lead to a higher level of leakages, and the delivery costs will not be accessible by the poor. So to conclude, while people talk of rural and urban, I honestly do not know what extent that classification is correct, apart from the fact that rural and urban in India is based on our population counts. Such classifications overlook the fact of poverty, and in the urban areas also there are a large number of poor people who migrated to escape rural poverty, right? And we do not have any gender disaggregated data with respect to poverty in rural and urban areas. So macro statistics gives us some guidelines. What is the action in real? We need to look into the micro level, try to analyze along the lines. Instead of generalizing men versus women the typical way, we honestly need to get into that. And the ultimate analysis is that the budgetary allocations for social welfare has to be increased. However, in the last decade, honestly, it has been constantly going down. I think I rest my case. This is what I feel. So, yeah.